I personally find people's careers really interesting, and I find myself in a really strange position where I'm a professional artist and specifically a model horse artist, and I never could have thought in a million years this is where I would be, because technically by profession I was supposed to be a 3D animator. Hi there, this is DeeJayBe. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Darynn. So I kind of had a very unique upbringing. I was raised in a smaller town. I like to call it a town. It's technically still a city, but it's only 20,000 people, and you can drive from one side of the town to the other side of the town in 10 minutes. I call it small town because it was very small town vibe. So I went to school with the same people all the way through. So the kids I knew in kindergarten were the kids I graduated high school with. And I was lucky enough to have experiences and be raised on property. So my family had a little hobby farm where we had a variety of animals. Straight from the beginning, I had like 3 things that were really important to me. And the first thing was family, the second thing was art, and the third thing was animals. And those 3 things have always kind of been my core. I was always interested in the arts, and not necessarily talented in the arts, just really keen to sit there for hours. I had the ability to concentrate and focus and like work on art. That's like a whole other little tangent for a different day, but I don't believe talent is inherent. I think I just really liked doing it, and therefore I did it a lot. And so naturally, as I grew, the art only got better with age and maturity. By the time I was 13, around 13, 14, I was getting really good. And I know I was getting good because people were noticing. My parents were noticing, friends and family were noticing. People offered to buy my stuff. I started working in pencil and charcoal and doing realism portraiture. Well, I would sell these portraits to friends and family, and that kind of bled into understanding business. And I found that side of it also very interesting. But I never limited myself to just that. I did a lot of other kinds of arts. I was always interested in film. I had a small YouTube channel. Always had a camera in my hand whenever I was hanging out with friends. I liked to paint occasionally. I did try model horse customizing at one point for a little while. I did a lot of different stuff, but I was in school, I was focused on my academics, and I was not very motivated. I did art on the side, but art was more a therapy for me. It was more of a release, an escape, coping mechanism. So a lot of my art was never shared. It was just my own thoughts and my own time, and I'd come home from school every day and I would draw. Naturally, the subjects that were my favorite to draw were my animals. I never drew people or plants or landscapes or anything like that. It was always animals, and pretty much mostly horses, because horses were kind of always my favorite. And I became known as like the kid in school that was good at art. That was my identity, that was my personality. But when it came to picking a career path and kind of what am I going to do with my life, I didn't really know. I didn't really have a clear idea. I think some kids grow up really like, I know exactly what I want. Other kids really struggle. I was kind of in the middle. Growing up in my family, my dad is a doctor, so naturally he would recommend that I go to university, get a degree, and then get a really well-paying job. Additionally, I am a person that is, how would I explain this? I want to feel secure. I am an anxious person, so I don't love the idea of freelance work. So I didn't actually want to be an artist at all. I didn't want freelance. I didn't want an inconsistent paycheck. I wanted a career that had stability and like consistency. It's tricky because you won't quite make the success as much as a doctor or as much as something highly educated. At the time, I didn't love school. I didn't love the idea of going to school for 10 plus years to get a degree. And to me, working was like a means to the end. Like, I don't think I ever really wanted to work my life away. I've never wanted that. I'm also a woman, so I do want to have children one day, and so I don't want to like dedicate a crazy amount of time to become this really intense working professional and then throw it all away in a couple of years to have children. So there was a lot of deciding factors on what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And then I stumbled across film school. Within Canada, one of the most popular ones or biggest ones or best advertising, it's hard to say, was Vancouver Film School. And it made a lot of sense to me. It was artistic, but it was more a career-driven artistic. So I could get a job in the animation industry, work in the animation industry, have a consistent paycheck, and be good. Of course, naive little me at 17 was like, I can move to the big city, no problem. I don't need this lifestyle. I can figure it out and do my own thing. And ultimately, I do believe that I needed to move away and experience life a little bit. My family was worried about me, and everybody that knew me was worried about me because I was a very introverted, quiet person. And how was I going to go to the big city and live by myself and go to this film school and work in this industry? I thought that the course of action would be to go into 3D animation because it's storytelling and artistry and everything all combined into this wonderful package. And then you go to the movies and you see these films and they fill you with so much joy and so much emotion. And so I was very excited, and I thought that that would be like the best of both worlds, essentially. I enrolled in 2014. I actually started in October. I took an extended summer and then jumped right in. So me at 17, I left home, left all my animals, left everything behind, and started my life in the big city. I lived downtown in a skyscraper, 9 floors up. I didn't have a vehicle and I didn't know how to cook, so I had to teach myself basically how to exist. It was a pretty cool experience because pretty much right off the bat, I made a lot of really good friends and we became very close just through experience because we're all doing the same thing. The interesting part about that particular school is that it's very international. So I actually was like one of the only Canadians. The rest of my classmates were from other countries and cultures. So I learned a lot about the world and different experiences and different opinions, and it gave me a very open mind to everyone. None of my friends were from the same place. Like, we were all from different walks of life, but we all had commonality to wanting to work in the industry and be an animator. Me being me and being kind of undecisive and unsure, I didn't enroll right away into the 3D animation. I actually enrolled into the foundational program. They have a program called Foundations of Visual Art and Design, and it gives you a taste of everything. And now I don't exactly know how the program is now because this was back in 2014, so this was quite a few years ago now. But at the time, the program was designed to give you a taste of everything. You just automatically enroll into whatever specified program you want after you've experienced it all. Foundations was amazing for me. I want to learn it all. I want to try it all. I'm never afraid to try things, and I really like trying new forms of art. So we did a lot of live action film. We did the 3D animation. We also did acting and writing, drawing. We had full-on life drawing classes and perspective drawing classes. We had design courses and learned all of the like Adobe Suite. It was kind of an overload of like all the different information you could possibly need in the different art forms and where you could take your career. And then VFS as a school has several different programs. So towards the end of the year, you kind of had to decide where you wanted to go. And I had kind of tentatively registered for 3D animation, and that's kind of where I ended up just naturally, even though I wasn't 100% sure with the medium and in love with it. I just rolled over and basically went straight through from first year into second year. And it's not like a standard university where you get 4 months of summer off. It was full on for the whole year. We had 4 weeks off total in the year, I think. It was 2 weeks at Christmas and a random 2 other weeks throughout. So any like weekend holiday was like an extra day to do more work and get your assignments done. At a time, I think I had 13 classes on the go at one time, and there was an assignment for each class. So it was a lot. You were really pushing yourself, and it was pushing yourself to be creative on demand. So that was the biggest thing that I learned from that whole experience. 2015 is when I started the 3D animation and visual effects program, and it was a lot more intense right out of the gate, and I was very nervous about it because I think I was a little uncertain about it. They do a similar thing where they kind of teach you the overarching everything. And then you pick a stream that you want to specialize in. So the 3 streams were visual effects, modeling, and animation. So I thought I'm an animator just because that makes the most sense. That's like bringing life to the characters, that's creating the movie. So that's kind of where I ended up. Looking back, probably should have like dabbled a little more in the other areas, because it's very like broad stroke where those 3 streams are those 3 things, but there's a lot of individual jobs in all of those streams that exist, and they're not necessarily taught or outreached as much as like those main 3 jobs. And in the second half, they set up the studio in such that it feels like an actual studio work environment. So it's a big room with a bunch of computers, and you're in with all your classmates, and you're set out to make your final demo reel for the 6 months of the year. Me being me, I wanted to do a short film, which was not advised, because if you're going into animation, you kind of want to make a character reel versus an actual short film. I completed the short film, and that short film actually went on to be screened at several film festivals all around the world, and it was selected to be a part of the Vancouver International Film Festival, which was really cool. I got to see it like in theaters. But basically you finish school and you're set out into the real world, and it's a very jarring experience because the animation industry is not necessarily based on talent as much as you would think. It's all computer generated art. So you're working on the computer for 8 hours a day in the dark in a cold studio, and you're glued to a computer screen. And I grew up, being a little more out in nature and outdoors, and that was kind of the lifestyle I used to live. So it was really like weird to be given approval to work on a computer for 8 hours a day. And it makes you feel like garbage. I'm really proficient in the computer and I like working on a computer, but like for a certain amount of time before I have to do something else, like go outside, clear my head. So 8 hours a day, every day for like 2 years on the computer. I was very computered out by the time I graduated. And I had a reel, but of course it wasn't quite the right reel. So job opportunities were challenging. I was basically unemployed for 5 months. Just living in the city, in my apartment. I was applying for jobs, entering my film in film festivals. I was doing stuff, but it was a long time to be kind of cooped up alone. And I do think like some part of that was really challenging for me personally, because I did have such an influence and such a heavy portfolio about the artistry of it all, and then I was kind of just lumped in with everyone else, and you become a production worker. And so it doesn't really matter if you have good technical drawing skills. They're not needed in the 3D animation realm. It's all computers, so you're just moving vertices and points. You're not drawing the characters. I mean, if you want to actually physically be drawing, you have to pick a career in storyboarding or concept design, and even then it's all digital on the computer. There's not a lot of pen on paper anymore. I think I had a little bit of that like gifted child syndrome, where I was very well known in my town for what I did, and then I was in the big city and it was very big, and there was people that were way better than me. And though like I never want to feel like I'm better than anyone else, I look up to people who are better than me all the time, because I think that they can push me and make me better. You kind of just become very anonymous, and I didn't actually like that very much. In my small town, you go to the doctor, you go to the chiropractor, you go to the grocery store, you know people and you've grown up with them, and your families know each other, and you can help each other, and if you're in a pinch, you can like get help because you know somebody. And in the city, it's very anonymous, and you go to the doctor and it's a different doctor every time, and there was a lot of transition there that was very challenging to navigate. Also living in an apartment where I couldn't have pets. I was cracking a little bit. The potential was exciting, but it definitely wasn't happening overnight. Like 5 months is a long time to kind of wait for a job. So I finally did land a job in March of 2017, and that was an internship. Basically, the studio ran a program where they'd bring you in as an intern, and that essentially meant that they could pay you minimum wage and do really subtle jobs in some of the shots of the TV shows, fixing and little things, and so they were also teaching you at the same time. So we had like assignments that we had to kind of prove ourselves as animators, and then basically they push you through this program, which is like 4 months long, and if you come out the other side decent, then they'll hire you for real. If they don't, then they let you go, and there's no consequence to that because it's an internship. It's a program that they run. So it was really smart, and it was actually very good because it gave me an ease in and gave a taste of what it's going to be like to work in an actual studio environment. So this studio was one that worked on a lot of TV shows, TV only, and that's kind of where you enter as an animator in general. Quality of the animation is far less than that of a film. So if you go to the theater and you watch a Pixar movie, that's really high-end animation. If you're working in TV, you've got 30 episodes in a season of a show and they're all half an hour long. That's a lot of content to get through. So the quality is there, but it's not as good. That was kind of like the first thing that you realize that maybe this isn't as exciting as it seems. Because you're working on preschool shows and shows that no one's going to ever see. They had me as a float animator. It's called a float when you kind of just do whatever is available. You don't have like a specified shot or anything. It's just clean up and wherever they need you. So that was VeggieTales in the City, which was the 3D animation version of VeggieTales. And then I also worked on DreamWorks Dino Trucks. And then my final project there was a layout position, which is a slightly different position on the Monster High YouTube series. Kind of like weird random projects and not quite super exciting. After the internship and kind of my floating around, they hired me on a TV movie. And so the TV movie is interesting because it was a little bit higher quality than the TV shows, but not quite the level of a feature film. So it was only, I think, 45 minutes long, and it was called Lucky. It was produced by Nickelodeon. It was actually a really cute story, and it was quite fun to work on. It was a big jump. A lot of junior animators don't really get that experience jumping into like a featurette like that. So I really didn't take that opportunity for granted. And I was hired as a junior animator, and as a junior, I definitely got kind of bottom of the barrel shot. I didn't do crazy amounts of work for that because they didn't fully trust me yet. Like I was still proving myself. I just came out of the internship. It went on for 7 months and finished in December of 2017. So it was July of 2017 that I was feeling kind of the depression sinking in. It felt wrong because I hadn't been in the industry very long at all. It had been half a year of not working and then like half a year of working, but know that I was in the city for the whole 2 years and I was working solid all the way through. So I was getting tired and I missed my family, I missed my animals, and I missed my art. I was working in a creative field that was pushing me creatively all day, but it was on projects for somebody else. Someone else's vision. It's never something I would have chosen to work on my own. It was where the pay was, but the pay wasn't even that great. The condition of living, I had moved from my skyscraper into a basement suite with a roommate. It was full of mold. The people upstairs were constantly fighting. So like first world problems, I know, but the way of life was just so different from kind of what I would hope for and want out of my life in the future. So like even though it was like a career, it wasn't gratifying me in the lifestyle of the career. But also like wasn't super stable either. I realized very quickly that you're contract to contract, project to project, and a studio can just implode halfway through. A project can get budget cut, so you can get fired at any point, and it's really not stable at all. It's no different than being a freelance artist. But it was July of 2017 that I was not feeling joy from the job, not feeling joy from my living situation. I felt like I needed to make something again. Like I needed to be able to hold something, touch something, sculpt something with my own hands. And that's where I kind of stumbled into the model horses again and started an Instagram alongside that. I just started pasteling stablemates in like the corner of my apartment, and then I offered them up for sale on Instagram. They sold quite quickly, and so then I was able to buy more supplies, which meant I could buy an airbrush. And so it turned into me going from work all day for 8 hours in animation, coming home, I would like pre-cook meals, so I just have to heat up a dinner when I got home, quickly eat, and then I would paint until I would go to bed. I would get up the next day and do it all over again. And then eventually that bled into learning to sculpt a little bit. And I also just started filming everything because why not? And creating a YouTube channel because that's something I always wanted to do. So when the money was a little more consistent, for sure, I think I found the freedom in like being able to collect briars again and be in that realm and start a YouTube channel because I want to, and like buy the equipment for that because I want to. It all kind of came full circle, and so the model horses is what kept me going. I don't think I would have lasted as long as I did if I didn't land in the model horse side of things, just because it was so tangible and physical and really helped me through that. By the end of the project in December of 2017, I was feeling pretty burnt out with animation. And another pivotal kind of moment for me, my lead on that project was a woman, and she had 2 young kids and a husband, and she couldn't afford anything in the city, so she lived 2 hours away. So she was commuting 2 hours every day in and out of work. But then we were also in crunch, so we were doing an insane amount of overtime. And so she was having to call her kids every night at 9 p.m. and them asking, like, when are you coming home to say goodnight? And she had to say every day, like, I'm sorry I can't, like I'm stuck at work and I'll be home. So she like basically didn't see her kids because they would be in bed by the time she would get home, and then she would have to leave before they were even awake. So it was very sad to me to see that kind of unfolding. And I personally, like I said, have always wanted, you know, marriage and a house and animals, pets, and a family, and that lifestyle with that job, being a woman and like having to be the one that would, you know, birth the children or raise the children, that doesn't necessarily jive with my life plans. So that's something I didn't really take into consideration until I was in it and seeing it, you know, firsthand. The animation industry is also not very gentle on its employees, so we did a lot of overtime a lot of the time and didn't get paid or didn't get fed, and like making barely over minimum wage as a junior. So it wasn't super great in that department either. And like, because I had models after work, I didn't want to be at work. I wanted to go home and like do my own thing. Like I had already done my 8 hours, produced as much as I could, and whenever I stayed overtime, I didn't produce good work. Like I would have been better off to go in early, but even then it's like your 8 hours, that's a lot already to be creative on demand. Asking for more at the end of the day, it was not quality work at that point. You really only get like 30-second snippets of the film, and at any point they can cut it, at any point they can tell you it's terrible and you need to redo it, or that they're changing it, or the script is changing, or whatever it may be. So you have to be really unmarried to the work. Even when you show your family at the end of the day, you're like, don't blink because you might miss my shot. But I saw that project through till the very end, and it ended in December of 2017. And I had a friend who was working in a different studio. It was actually a feature film studio. We were kind of chatting about kind of what I was going to do next, and he had availability in the previs department or layout. And that was something I was always interested in, so I decided to go to that company, and I was hired in April of 2018. And so I worked there for basically a year as well until February of 2019. That project was for the Netflix movie The Willoughbys, which actually turned out pretty good. I actually do like that movie if you haven't seen it. So my name is credited at the end. I was a layout artist, and layout is a little bit different in that you get like a whole sequence of the movie, so you get like a couple minutes of it. Basically the director would write the story and then an artist would draw the frames of like what the movie will kind of look like to the audio. Once that's finalized, then they bring in the 3D team, and so the layout artists are the ones that will take those shots and make them in 3D with the 3D assets. So you're just putting the characters where they're supposed to be, and you're mainly actually working with the camera. So it's the shot by shot sequence and how it's going to flow, how the camera's going to move, and like you're moving the characters but you're not posing them. We put like vague emotion on them. We put like a sad face or happy face, or like move their arm if it needed to be in a certain position, or like holding the thing. If they were just walking, they could just be in T-pose, like walking through. Like it's very rough and very fast, but it allows the director to see the vision, and it allows the team to see, you know, how we're going to basically make this in 3D now. So it was a lot more exciting and fun, and I really actually liked it because I felt like I was a bigger part of the movie. And it was cool because we did weekly meetings where I actually was talking with the director, and so we had a relationship because he knew the previs team. Like, we work hand in hand with the director. It's all sent off to the animators, and then they refine it and they work on all the blinking and all the dialogue and all the movement of the shot. So I really liked layout. I think that was definitely where I needed to be. That studio was actually amazing. The team was amazing. The people I worked with were so good. I still miss that team. Like, that was a highlight of my career for sure. The studio treated everyone really well. Like, they actually did pay overtime and they paid for meals, and they're like, the budgeting for a movie is very different from TV. It's a lot better. That project was actually extended, so I didn't actually see it through all the way to the end. But near the end, I really just needed to leave. But there's a lot of emotion that goes with that because it was a lot of money, it was a lot of time. It felt like it was the right thing for me, and I was going to have to start from square one of like, what do I want to do? And I think I was so in my head about, I need to have a job that's a career, that's a consistent paycheck. And so I moved back home to the small town I grew up in. That was in February of 2019. And I went on a trip when I got home. And then I actually had a job interview while I was on that trip. And the interview was to work part-time. So I was going to take a step back from full-time. I was just going to work 3 days a week and then do my art stuff the rest of the week, because it was making enough money by that point that it could supplement at least half of my income. I was also going to be living with my parents, so like I had a little more leeway to kind of step back and focus on that. So I actually worked in a print shop, a local print shop, and it was a really cool job. I loved it, and I still love doing that kind of thing, learning design, printing with a commercial printer, screen printing, vehicle installation, sublimation. So I learned all of it, and it was a very fast-paced environment as well. Though animation is a very different thing, the foundational program gave me a lot of that, like Adobe software and graphic design and composition and those different elements. I really loved that job, and I had a really good experience learning all of that stuff. I ended up in a similar place where I felt like the pay to the effort ratio was just not quite there. Just not feeling like I was a valuable asset fully. I was at the point where my boss could leave and I was running the whole shop, some days on my own, and I was able to do all of the printing and scheduling, taking phone calls and talking to customers that walked in, and literally running the shop. Wasn't making much more over minimum wage, so it just didn't feel feasible. And we were supposed to have a discussion about management, and I grappled on that, but then like ultimately the art that I was doing was like so powerful and so all-consuming that I couldn't see myself being happy letting that go to like run a print shop, because it's kind of one or the other. I saw it through till December, but then I decided to quit. So you'd think by this point I'd be like, okay, maybe I should just do art full-time. Well, no, I still thought I needed to go back to school and get a career. The doctor side of things wasn't going to happen unless I went back to school, so I thought, why not try veterinary, because that was something that was always semi-interesting, but once again, another industry that just doesn't have money in it. It just simply does not pay. So minimum wage again, and I was an assistant kennel staff. So that meant that I was cleaning kennels, so a lot of vomit and a lot of poop. And I was a runner, so like grabbing whatever they might need and cleaning all of the tools and cleaning. It was a lot of cleaning, vacuuming, scrubbing, poop, vomit, blood. I do not regret my time working there, but I don't think it was ever my heart's passion, and I definitely woke up every day kind of dreading to go. And I lived like that for a long time. I worked that job from October 2020 to November 2022, so I was actually there for 2 years. And so finally in November of 2022, I sent my letter of resignation and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a full-time artist. Eventually, like, you hustle so hard, eventually it just makes more sense to quit the part-time work. Like, the part-time work was making the same amount as the not part-time work. So I'm like, if I quit and get the extra 3 days, I'm going to make the same amount of money and I'm going to be much happier, and I just get to do art. But I do remember it was very much a mental shift. And I constantly was asking everyone, what do you think? What should I do? How do I do this? I don't know that I can. I need you to tell me you believe in me. And ultimately it came down to, I had to believe in myself. There was like apprehension from a few people, and it didn't matter because I wanted to do it. I was going to try it. And what is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario was that I'd have to pick up the vet job again. Like, they would take me back. I could pick up work anywhere else. There's tons of things you can do. A job is a job. You can always find a job. It might not be the best job or the most well-paying job, but you can always find work somewhere. And I work a lot more than I've ever worked, but I get what I put into it. And if something fails, it's on me. It's not affecting anyone else other than myself. And I much prefer that. And I couldn't be happier. I mean, my life and myself, I feel so much happier. I feel secure in that if I do decide to have children one day now, I can still dabble at work. There's still things I can do that will help. It's also very cool to look back because I feel like everything I did in VFS and through animation and all of my jobs and all the experiences have all bled into what I do now. So none of it was a waste. I don't regret any of it. As hard as it was to leave, I learned so much from that. And all the little pieces of art and inspiration and knowledge that I've gained, I utilize in my business today. And so it all kind of funnels into this and makes the most sense for me and my story and my upbringing and what I want out of life. And I know a lot of people don't find that in life, and I really do hope that you all do, because it's such a gratifying thing. And I feel like the teaching gives me that like helping people portion and the fulfillment portion. I didn't have fulfillment in the other areas of work, but also like this is my life's purpose, and I do feel like I was put on this earth to make art and to share that art with everyone else. I really put value now on lifestyle, and I think that's my biggest piece of advice to anyone unsure what they want to do, and when you're picking what school or what career you want to go into, I think you really need to consider your lifestyle. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it to the end, and hopefully that gave you some insight into my life, but also maybe some insight into your life and what you plan on doing.